Well, let's turn the spotlight to the events happening in the world right now. We begin with breaking news that Iran has claimed it struck the office of Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu amid escalating Middle East tensions. Israeli officials have not confirmed the strike, and Netanyahu's status remains unclear as Iran-Israel conflict intensifies. Meanwhile, new Iranian strikes have been reported across the Middle East, including in Saudi Arabia, where an oil refinery fire is under control. A joint statement from Gulf states and the U.S. condemns Iran's indiscriminate and reckless missile and drone attacks. This comes after Israel and the U.S. struck Iran on Saturday, killing the country's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. The Israeli military now says it has launched additional strikes on Tehran. Authorities in Iran have warned residents not to go out on the street to protest. We can also see that in Kuwait, several U.S. fighter planes have crashed in what U.S. military says was an apparent friendly fire incident. One plane was seen fulminating to the ground, was caught on film. Also, the Lebanese Health Ministry says Israeli attacks in Beirut and southern Lebanon have killed at least 31 people. Israel says it was responding to Hezbollah's attacks. And on Sunday, an Iranian missile killed 9 people in the Israeli city of Beit Shemesh. How did the war even begin? Today on Worldview, we take a deeper look at the evolution of the Iran and U.S. crisis from 1979 to date. In a rivalry rooted in resolution, the hostility between Israel and Iran did not begin with missiles in the skies. It traces back to 1979, where Iran's Islamic Revolution transformed the country's political identity. Under its new leadership, Tehran adopted a firm ideological opposition to Israel's existence. Over time, that position hardened. Israel in turn came to view Iran as its most serious long-term security threat, particularly as Iran expanded its missile program and deepened ties with armed groups across the region. The United States, Israel's closest ally, aligned firmly with Jerusalem's position. Washington repeatedly accused Iran of seeking nuclear weapons capability. Iran insisted its nuclear program was peaceful, intended for civilian energy and scientific advancement. For years, this dispute was managed, sometimes barely through diplomacy. Through 2025 and into early 2026, inter-red negotiations resumed between the United States and Iran. Talks were mediated by regional actors such as Oman, and sessions were held in diplomatic hubs like Geneva. The aim was familiar: curb Iran's uranium enrichment in exchange for sanctions relief. Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi led Tehran's negotiating team. Iran demanded recognition of its right to enrich uranium at low levels for peaceful purposes, similar to provisions under the 2015 nuclear deal. It also sought meaningful sanction reliefs, access to frozen oil revenues, and economic reintegration. Tehran drew a red line: no negotiation on its missiles program or regional alliance.
Iran has consistently pursued a strategy aimed at the peaceful use of nuclear energy, while demonstrating readiness to address any concerns regarding the nature of its nuclear program and to ensure its exclusively peaceful character. It was on this basis that Iran entered into nuclear negotiations and has continued until very today. A review of the course of these negotiations speaks volumes. The Islamic Republic of Iran has consistently affirmed that it neither seeks to manufacture nor to acquire nuclear weapons, which have no place whatsoever in Iran's national security doctrine. This position is rooted in our defense policy and reinforced by clear religious boundaries prohibiting weapons of mass destruction. Mr. President, lasting agreements can only be achieved through mutual balanced commitments and respect for the legitimate rights of nations. The Treaty on the Non-Proliferation of Nuclear Weapons explicitly recognizes the inalienable right of all state parties to develop, research, produce and use nuclear energy, including enrichment, for peaceful purposes. This right is inherent, non-negotiable and legally binding. It is not conditional upon political considerations, nor can it be suspended or reinterpreted arbitrarily. Any attempt to portray this right as revocable fundamentally contradicts the letter and spirit of the treaty. Despite Iran's demonstrated commitment to diplomacy and good faith engagement, the conduct of certain Western states, most notably the United States, has seriously undermined the credibility of the negotiating process. The unilateral withdrawal of the United States from the CPOA, in clear violation of an internationally endorsed agreement, dealt a profound blow to trust and stability of multilateral obligations. This decision not only disregarded multilateral commitments, but also imposed unjustified economic and humanitarian consequences on the Iranian people.
In Washington, under President Donald Trump, the demands were far broader. The U.S. insisted on a complete and permanent halt to uranium enrichment, strict limit on ballistic missiles, and unrestricted inspections, by the International Atomic Energy Agency.
States never to allow Iran to obtain a nuclear weapon, many decades. Since they seized control of that proud nation 47 years ago, the regime and its murderous proxies have spread nothing but terrorism and death and hate. They've already developed missiles that can threaten Europe and our bases overseas, and they're working to build missiles that will soon reach the United States of America. After Midnight Hammer, they were warned to make no future attempts to rebuild their weapons program, and in particular, nuclear weapons. Yet they continue, starting it all over. We wiped it out, and they want to start all over again, and are at this moment again pursuing their sinister ambitions. We are in negotiations with them. They want to make a deal, but we haven't heard those secret words. We will never have a nuclear weapon. My preference is to solve this problem through diplomacy. But one thing is certain, I will never allow the world's #1 sponsor of terror, which they are by far, to have a nuclear weapon.
Each side claimed it was defending global security. Each side believed the other was refusing compromise. By late February 2026, negotiators were reportedly close to drafting a framework. But critical disagreement over enforcement and verification remained unresolved. Let's look at what happened in the final weeks before the war. In the final weeks, victories sharpened. President Trump warned of decisive action if Iran did not accept new terms. Iranian officials responded that they would not bow to what they described as excessive demands. Then came the turning point. On February 28, 2026, full intelligence assessment reportedly based on IAEA findings suggesting Iran's enrichment levels were approaching weaponization thresholds. The United States and Israel launched what they described as a preemptive strike. Trump framed the operation as necessary to prevent a global nuclear catastrophe.
A short time ago, the United States military began major combat operations in Iran. Our objective is to defend the American people by eliminating imminent threats from the Iranian regime, a vicious group of very hard, terrible people. Its menacing activities directly endanger the United States, our troops, our bases overseas, and our allies throughout the world. For 47 years, the Iranian regime has chanted death to America and waged an unending campaign of bloodshed and mass murder, targeting the United States, our troops, and the innocent people in many, many countries. Iran is the world's #1 state sponsor of terror and just recently killed tens of thousands of its own citizens on the street as they protested. It has always been the policy of the United States, in particular, my administration, that this terrorist regime can never have a nuclear weapon. I'll say it again, they can never have a nuclear weapon. That is why in Operation Midnight Hammer last June, we obliterated the regime's nuclear program at Fordow, Natanz, and Isfahan. After that attack, we warned them never to resume their malicious pursuit of nuclear weapons, and we sought repeatedly to make a deal. But Iran refused, just as it has for decades and decades. They've rejected every opportunity to renounce their nuclear ambitions, and we can't take it anymore. For these reasons, the United States military is undertaking a massive and ongoing operation to prevent this very wicked, radical dictatorship from threatening America and our core national security interests. We are going to destroy their missiles and raise their missile industry to the ground. It will be totally, again, obliterated. We're going to annihilate their Navy. We're going to ensure that the region's terrorist proxies can no longer destabilize the region or the world and attack our forces and no longer use their IEDs or roadside bombs, as they are sometimes called, to so gravely wound and kill thousands and thousands of people, including many Americans.
At approximately 8 o'clock, stealth F-35 aircraft moved into Iranian airspace, targeting air defense system near Tehran and Isfahan. Hardened underground nuclear facilities at Natanz nuclear facilities and Fordow field enrichment plants were struck with deep penetration munitions. Within hours, the region braced for retaliation. The conflict began in tense, where in the early hours of March 1st, Iran launched ballistic missiles and drones towards U.S. and Israeli positions across the Middle East. This included bases in Qatar, Kuwait, and Bahrain. Missiles struck Israeli territory, including cities such as Tel Aviv and Beit Shemesh. At least 9 people were reported killed, with dozens injured, as residential areas suffered heavy damage. The shadow war had become a direct one. Meanwhile, U.S. Central Command shared 3 U.S. servicemen were killed in action and 5 are seriously wounded as part of Operation Epic Fury. President Trump posted a new video to his true social media acknowledging for the first time on camera the death of 3 U.S. troops killed during the U.S. operation against Iran over the weekend.
We have hit hundreds of targets in Iran, including Revolutionary Guard facilities, Iranian air defense systems. Just now it was announced that we knocked out 9 ships plus their naval building, all in a matter of literally minutes. Iran's formerly supreme leader, Ayatollah Khamenei, is dead. This wretched and vile man had the blood of hundreds and even thousands of Americans on his hands and was responsible for the slaughter of countless thousands of innocent people all across many countries. Combat operations continue at this time in full force, and they will continue until all of our objectives are achieved. We have very strong objectives. They could have done something 2 weeks ago, but they just couldn't get there. Earlier today, CENTCOM shared the news that 3 U.S. military service members have been killed in action. As one nation, we grieve for the true American patriots who have made the ultimate sacrifice for our nation, even as we continue the righteous mission for which they gave their lives. And sadly, there will likely be more. Before it ends, that's the way it is. But America will avenge their deaths and deliver the most punishing blow to the...
Among the most consequential developments was the reported death of Ali Khamenei, Iran's supreme leader since 1989. Iranian state media confirmed that his secured residence in Tehran had been hit during the opening strikes. He was reportedly killed alongside senior military officials and family members.
بعد از عمری مجاهدت حسینی و دائمی و خستگی ناپذیر روح بلند و ملکوتی کوه نستوه ولایت پدر مهربان امت رهبر و امام مسلمین حضرت آیت الله العظما سید علی حسینی خامنه‌ای در راه سربلندی حرم جمهوری اسلامی ایران شهد گوارای شهادت را نوشیدند و به ملکوت اعلی پیوستند.
Khamenei had shaped Iran's political and military doctrine for more than 3 decades. A staunch critic of the West and Israel, he oversaw Iran's expansion of regional influence through groups such as Hezbollah and Hamas. His death marked the end of an era. Meanwhile, Iran's president has vowed that Iranian forces will leave their enemies hopeless following U.S.-Israeli strikes that killed Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei on Saturday, 28 February.
نیروهای مسلح جمهوری اسلامی ایران با قدرت در برهم کوبیدن پایگاه‌های دشمنان در اقدامند و اقدام خواهند کرد و دشمنان رو مثل همیشه ناامید خواهند نمود و آمریکا و اسرائیل باید بدانند که جز سرفکندگی برای اینها هیچ ارمغانی نخواهد داشت و ملت عزیز ما که امروز سوگوار درگذشت این شهید بزرگوار هستند با حضورشون و با در میدان بودنشون در مساجد و در خیابانها نقشه های شوم دشمنان رو باید دست به دست هم بدیم و نقشه برآب بکنیم.
Iran declared a 40-day mourning period. Massive public processions filled the street. President Masoud Pezeshkian condemned the strike as a great crime and vowed retaliation. Yet, reactions inside Iran was not uniform. State-organized mourning unfolded. Social media showed another reality. In parts of Tehran and other cities, some Iranians celebrated. Videos captured spontaneous scenes of people honking car horns, cheering, and even dancing.
السلام على من دفن اهل قرى نمیدونیم چقدر مرگ بر اسرائیل مرگ بر اسرائیل خامنه ای رهبر خامنه ای رهبر
A group, Kimani symbolized decades of political repression and economic hardship. His death to them represented the possibility, however uncertain, of change. It was a stark image, grief and celebration unfolding simultaneously within the same nation.